Imagine waking up in a city where more than 10 million hearts beat in anxious unison, a metropolis that has stood for centuries as the vibrant heart of a proud nation. Now, its highways are suffocating under the weight of endless lines of vehicles, packed with families clutching belongings, desperate to escape the thunder of warplanes overhead. This is Tehran, the capital of Iran, gripped by fear on the sixth consecutive day of merciless airstrikes. All across the world, televisions flicker with images of chaos, and an urgent question pulses in every mind. Will the United States plunge headlong into yet another Middle East conflict, this time with Iran at its burning center? At the heart of this global drama stands President Donald Trump. Outside the White House, he faces the press, his expression inscrutable, his words sparking a storm of speculation. "I may do it, I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do," he says, his tone ambiguous, fueling uncertainty both at home and abroad. The world holds its collective breath, perched on a knife's edge between war and peace. But how did we arrive at this perilous moment, teetering above the abyss of a potentially catastrophic conflict? To truly understand, we must journey through decades of tangled history, a history marked by cycles of hope and betrayal, of fleeting cooperation and bitter rivalry. For over 4 decades, relations between the United States and Iran have been fraught with suspicion and hostility. The roots stretch back to the seismic year of 1979, when the Iranian Revolution ousted the American-backed Shah and established the Islamic Republic under Ayatollah Khomeini. That revolution set the stage for a new era of animosity, one that has ebbed and flowed but never truly healed. Yet, there have been moments of real, if fragile, hope. The signing of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action in 2015, known as the Iran nuclear deal, was hailed as a turning point. For a brief period, sanctions eased, and Iran curbed its nuclear activities under the watchful eyes of international inspectors. But that hope was short-lived. In 2018, President Trump abruptly withdrew from the deal, reimposing crushing sanctions and reigniting a spiral of escalation. Iran, feeling cornered, responded in kind. The nation accelerated its support for regional proxies, groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and various militias in Iraq and Syria. Simultaneously, it ramped up research into advanced weaponry and pushed its nuclear program closer to the edge of weapons capability. The world watched, apprehensive, as the shadow of another major war began to grow. By early 2025, the stakes had reached a fever pitch. Iran's military spending soared past $12 billion, a staggering 200% increase compared to previous years. These vast resources have been funneled into modernizing the country's arsenal. Hypersonic missiles capable of reaching distant targets within minutes, fleets of sophisticated drones that can swarm enemy defenses, and cutting-edge cyber warfare units skilled at infiltrating foreign infrastructure. According to the latest reports from the International Atomic Energy Agency, Iran now possesses every component necessary to assemble a nuclear bomb. While the IAEA maintains that there is no definitive proof Iran has begun weaponizing its nuclear program, the sense of imminent danger has never been more acute. The specter of nuclear proliferation looms over the region, threatening to spark a new and uncontrollable arms race. For military leaders in Washington, the situation is intolerable. General Michael Kurilla, the commander of United States Central Command, is among those urging President Trump to consider a spectrum of military options. On the front lines, Israel has already unleashed a campaign of airstrikes, targeting Iranian police headquarters, missile sites, and even the heavily fortified Fordow nuclear facility. Fordow, buried deep beneath a mountain near the holy city of Qom, is regarded by experts as nearly impenetrable. Only the world's most powerful bunker-busting munitions, most likely in American hands, could hope to destroy it completely. As bombs fall on Tehran, millions of its residents are forced to make impossible choices. Highways leading out of the city become rivers of refugees, families abandoning their homes in search of safety. Iranian state media broadcasts images of bombed-out neighborhoods and overwhelmed hospitals. The psychological toll is immense. A city that once bustled with life now echoes with the sounds of sirens, air raid warnings, and the distant rumble of explosions. Beyond Iran's borders, the crisis has sent shockwaves through global capitals. In Europe, diplomats from Germany, France, and the United Kingdom urgently convene in Geneva, seeking to revive talks that could pull the region back from the precipice. Their goal is simple but monumental: to secure ironclad guarantees that Iran's nuclear program remains strictly civilian. Strategic, diplomatic, and economic factors need careful consideration, analysts at the Rand Corporation warn, emphasizing the intricate web of interests and risks at play. Yet time is running out. With every passing day, the potential for miscalculation grows. Each airstrike, each retaliatory attack by Iran's regional allies, brings the world closer to a wider and far more devastating conflict. The risk is not just military. Oil prices have already begun to surge, threatening fragile economies from Asia to Europe to the Americas. In the global marketplace, uncertainty is the enemy of stability, and investors are scrambling to hedge against the unknown. Inside Iran, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, now in his 86th year, appears on state television, his resolve unbroken. Any United States military intervention will undoubtedly be accompanied by irreparable damage, he declares, his words echoing through mosques, parliament chambers, and the streets of Tehran. For many Iranians, this is a moment of national defiance, a test of endurance and unity in the face of overwhelming odds. Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu releases a video message to the world. Israel is progressing step by step, he says, towards eliminating the threats posed by Iran's nuclear sites and missile arsenal. The implication is clear. Israel will not stand idly by as its most determined adversary edges closer to nuclear capability. The world, as always, waits in anxious suspense. Will President Trump authorize military action, joining Israel in a full-scale campaign against Iran? Or is there still a narrow pathway open for diplomacy, for a negotiated solution that avoids catastrophe? To answer these questions, we must look not only at the present crisis but also at the broader forces shaping it. Iran is not a minor power. Ranked as the 16th strongest military force on the planet by the Global Firepower Index, it commands hundreds of thousands of active personnel, thousands of tanks and armored vehicles, and a growing arsenal of ballistic and cruise missiles. Its military doctrine is built around asymmetric warfare, using proxy forces, cyber attacks, and unconventional tactics to offset the technological superiority of its adversaries. A direct United States attack on Iran could ignite an unpredictable chain reaction. Iran's regional allies, most notably Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen, could retaliate by launching attacks on United States installations and partners across the Middle East. American troops stationed in Iraq, Syria, Saudi Arabia, and beyond would instantly become targets. United States embassies could face siege. International shipping lanes in the Persian Gulf, through which a significant portion of the world's oil flows, could be blockaded or mined, causing energy prices to skyrocket overnight. The economic implications are staggering. Already the threat of conflict has pushed oil prices to levels not seen in years. A protracted war could drive them even higher, triggering inflation, stalling post-pandemic recoveries, and plunging millions into financial hardship. Remember, the Middle East supplies nearly 1/3 of the world's daily oil consumption. Even a brief disruption could send shockwaves through global markets, affecting everything from airline tickets to food prices. There are also serious political risks. A new war in the Middle East could ignite anti-American sentiment across the Muslim world, fueling recruitment for extremist organizations and undermining the legitimacy of pro-Western governments in the region. Senator Tim Kaine, a prominent voice in United States foreign policy, has warned that a third Middle East war would be a catastrophic mistake, risking the lives of countless American service members and plunging an already volatile region into further chaos. Yet, amid the dangers, some see opportunity. A credible show of force, some diplomats argue, might pressure Iran back to the negotiating table. European leaders are scrambling to orchestrate last-ditch talks, hoping to craft a new agreement that would guarantee the civilian nature of Iran's nuclear ambitions and put in place robust verification mechanisms. Success could stabilize the region, pave the way for economic cooperation, and perhaps even open Iran to greater engagement with the world. But achieving such a breakthrough will not be easy. The United States, under its renewed maximum pressure strategy, formalized in February 2025 as National Security Presidential Memorandum No. 2, has made clear that dismantling Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile programs is a non-negotiable objective. The International Atomic Energy Agency's latest findings confirm that Iran possesses all the necessary bomb-making components, although it insists that there is no conclusive evidence of active weaponization. Nevertheless, the risk of nuclear proliferation is painfully real, and every day without a deal increases the danger. It is worth recalling that history is replete with moments where brinkmanship nearly tipped the world into disaster. The Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, for example, brought the United States and the Soviet Union to the very edge of nuclear war, only to be defused at the last moment by secret negotiations and mutual concessions. The lesson is clear: dialogue, however difficult, can avert catastrophe where force might fail. At the same time, the current crisis is shaped by new technological realities. Cyber warfare, for example, has opened a new front in the struggle. Iranian hackers have already demonstrated their ability to disrupt financial systems and critical infrastructure, both regionally and globally. In response, the United States and its allies have invested heavily in cyber defenses, creating a digital arms race that is every bit as consequential as the contest over missiles and bombs. The complexity of modern conflict means that the consequences of any United States strike would extend far beyond the battlefield. Technology companies, for instance, are closely monitoring the situation, aware that an escalation could disrupt global supply chains for everything from semiconductors to rare earth minerals. In 2020, the world witnessed how a single blockage in the Suez Canal could send ripples through international trade. Imagine the impact if the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow passageway through which nearly 1/5 of all traded oil passes, were suddenly closed by conflict. For investors, entrepreneurs, and ordinary citizens alike, the lesson is stark. In an interconnected world, decisions made in distant capitals can have immediate and profound effects on our daily lives. Stock markets are notoriously sensitive to geopolitical shocks. A single missile strike or diplomatic breakdown can erase billions of dollars in value within hours. Conversely, positive news, such as a breakthrough in negotiations, can trigger rallies and restore confidence. So what, ultimately, should viewers like you take away from this unfolding crisis? First, recognize that world events are deeply interconnected. The fate of Tehran, Washington, Jerusalem, and even distant Berlin or Tokyo are bound together in a web of political, economic, and technological relationships. A single rash decision has the potential to set off repercussions that circle the globe. Second, appreciate the complexity of global diplomacy. Negotiations are not merely about words or signatures on paper. They are about balancing power, managing perceptions, and preparing for every possible contingency. Experts at the Rand Corporation remind us that successful strategy demands a careful blend of military readiness, diplomatic engagement, and economic leverage. The Iranian crisis is a vivid illustration of why history, technological capability, and alliances all matter in today's high-stakes world. Third, be aware of the undercurrents, the hidden dynamics that rarely make headlines. Behind every public statement, there are secret back channels, late-night phone calls, and informal talks that can shift the course of history. Sometimes, what we do not see is even more important than what we do. During the Cold War, for example, secret meetings between American and Soviet officials often laid the groundwork for arms control agreements that averted disaster. It is also critical to consider the human dimension. For every military calculation and diplomatic maneuver, there are countless ordinary people, families, workers, students, whose lives are disrupted by conflict. In Tehran, children huddle in basements as bombs fall. In Washington and Tel Aviv, families worry about loved ones stationed overseas. The scars of war endure for generations, shaping societies long after the last shot is fired. Looking ahead, the possible scenarios are sobering. A United States military strike on Iran could trigger a wider regional war, drawing in Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, and potentially even great powers like Russia or China. Proxies on all sides would escalate their campaigns, launching missiles and cyber attacks in a grim spiral of retaliation. The region could be destabilized for decades, with millions displaced and economies shattered. Alternatively, renewed diplomatic efforts could bear fruit, leading to a revised nuclear agreement that eases tensions and opens the door to gradual normalization. This would require courage and vision from leaders on all sides, as well as the support of the international community. The outcome is far from certain, but history reminds us that even the most intractable disputes can be resolved with patience and determination. A third possibility is that the current state of heightened tension simply continues, with sporadic clashes, proxy conflicts, and occasional negotiations that never quite produce a breakthrough. This forever crisis scenario is unsatisfying, but all too common in international relations, leaving millions in limbo and the world perpetually on edge. Here's a secret few realize. While world leaders and military commanders dominate the headlines, It is often the quiet negotiations, the whispered conversations in hotel corridors, the encrypted messages between capitals that truly shift the course of history. Sometimes, what we do not see matters even more than what we do. As you reflect on these events, remember that staying informed is not just about knowing what happened, but understanding why it matters. The intersection of economics, technology, and geopolitics is more tangled than ever before. Whether you are an investor tracking oil prices, a technologist watching cyber trends, or simply a curious citizen, your awareness is your best defense against uncertainty. So, what do you think? Is military action against Iran inevitable, or is there still hope for peace through diplomacy? Share your perspectives in the comments. We read every single one. If you want to stay ahead of the curve on global economics, technology, and the forces that shape our world, be sure to subscribe and join our community. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed.